Hi, this is David for 10 on Tactics, brought to you by tacticsandtrials.com. Please remember to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and leave your comments and questions below. In light of the recent activity in California involving the National Guard, we felt it was important to review who the National Guard is and what role they play during public emergencies. The California Militia, or National Guard, began in 1850 when the state legislature, meeting in San Jose, formally organized a state militia and elected an adjutant general to lead it. The legislature created 4 divisions and designated brigades under brigadier generals. By the Civil War era, there were some 21 militia companies in San Francisco. Over time, the 1st California Guard evolved into Company A, 1st Regiment, or the Light Battery of the National Guard. In 1916, Congress passed the National Defense Act, which elevated the Guard's role by authorizing federal funding for drills and training and allowing federal mobilization during national emergencies. Amendments in 1920 and 1933 further integrated the Guard into the U.S. Army's force structure, designating dual status under Title 32, State Control, and Title 10, Federal Control. By 1890, the California National Guard was already responding to state emergencies like the 1927 Folsom Prison Riot and the 1930s dock strikes. In 1940 and 1941, roughly 12,000 troops were federalized to patrol California's coast in preparation for broader Pacific engagement during World War II. Many California Guard units served abroad during the war, while others supported infrastructure needs at home. In the post-war years, California National Guard units were frequently activated for state missions. Examples include the 1965 Watts riots, the 1992 Los Angeles riots, and responses to natural disasters. These deployments also raised constitutional questions, like the legality of federal activation during the 1965 civil rights unrest and the 1992 LA riots. Since 2001, CalGuard members have been mobilized overseas more than 38,000 times, serving in places like Iraq, Afghanistan, Kuwait, and Guantanamo Bay. Domestically, they've played critical roles in disaster relief, especially for wildfires and during the COVID-19 pandemic, often in partnership with the California State Guard. The California National Guard, often called the CalGuard, has 3 main components: the California Army National Guard, the California Air National Guard, which includes key wings like the 129th Rescue and the 144th Fighter, and the California State Guard, a defense force activated during emergencies under Title 32 and the state's Military and Veterans Code. CalGuard serves a dual role. Federally, it provides trained and equipped units for war, national emergencies, or other needs as directed by the President or Congress. At the state level, it supports civil authorities, provides disaster relief, and, when necessary, helps enforce martial law when local control fails. CalGuard has a long history of assisting local law enforcement during periods of civil unrest and riot control. In 1965, Governor Pat Brown deployed around 14,000 Guard troops during the Watts riots. They worked with LAPD and CHP to suppress the unrest, which left 34 dead and caused over $40 million in damage. In 1966, the Hunters Point uprising in San Francisco prompted Governor Brown to activate the Guard and CHP. Martial law was imposed from September 27th to October 1st. During the 1969 People's Park protest at UC Berkeley, Governor Ronald Reagan deployed the Guard alongside law enforcement to restore order. And in 1992, over 10,000 CalGuard personnel supported LAPD and LASD during the riots sparked by the Rodney King verdict. Eventually, federal troops were brought in under Joint Task Force Los Angeles, and CalGuard units shifted between state and federal control. The CalGuard also supports natural disaster response and firefighting operations. They've participated in joint federal-state anti-crime operations. One example is Operation Green Sweep in 1990, which targeted illegal marijuana grows in Humboldt County. It involved 110 CalGuard soldiers, 60 U.S. Army soldiers, and 60 federal agents. More recently, the 143rd Military Police Battalion assisted with federal drug raids near Mecca, California. More recently, about 90 CalGuard troops supported federal border control and immigration operations in Los Angeles. Though no arrests were made, tactical elements like armored vehicles and horseback units were deployed. This action drew criticism from local leaders, highlighting tensions between state and federal mandates. In June 2025, President Trump federalized up to 4,000 CalGuard troops under Title 10 in response to unrest in Los Angeles. Governor Newsom legally challenged the move, but a federal appeals court ruled that President Trump had the authority to retain control of the Guard. This activation occurred under Title 10, Section 12,406 in response to immigration-related protests. California challenged the move, citing violations of the Posse Comitatus Act and the 10th Amendment's anti-commandeering principles. However, the court upheld the president's actions. The Cal Guard operates under a dual-status framework. Under Title 32, the governor activates troops for state missions using federal funding. Troops remain under state control and are exempt from Posse Comitatus restrictions. Under Title 10, the Guard is placed under federal control and subject to Posse Comitatus limitations unless a statute like the Insurrection Act is invoked. The Insurrection Act is codified under Title 10, U.S. Code, Chapter 13. Section 251 allows the president to respond to insurrections upon a governor's request. Section 252 permits deployment without a state request when federal law enforcement is being obstructed. Section 253 allows action when domestic violence interferes with the enforcement of federal or constitutional rights. Most of the time, a state request is required under Section 251, but under Sections 252 or 253, the president can act unilaterally when unrest exceeds local and federal law enforcement capacity. The Posse Comitatus Act, found under 18 U.S. Code Section 1385, generally prohibits the use of military forces, including the National Guard, when federalized, for domestic law enforcement unless authorized by statutes like the Insurrection Act. Examples of federalized Guard activity under Title 10 include the Civil Rights era, such as Little Rock in 1957 and the University of Mississippi in 1962, as well as the 1992 LA riots. In 2025, President Trump invoked Section 12,406 to federalize California Guard troops for the protection of federal personnel. The Department of Justice cited the Insurrection Act to justify the move. The Ninth Circuit allowed the deployment to continue, but the underlying constitutional and statutory questions are still being litigated. This is David for tacticsandtrials.com. Please remember to hit the like button and leave your comments and questions below.